Sheikh, and of course, later on in the broadcast, we'll also be having a candid discussion on personal development. So you need to keep it right here because it's equally very important that you walk with us through to the journey of greatness, or maybe through the journey of greatness and to greatness. And it's equally very important that you taught how best you can come out to bring the best of yourself. So we'll be having Jen Abukutsa later on, who's a motivational speaker, and she will be taking us through that realization process for us to make the best of our great future. But that aside, like Ayub has rightfully put it, this morning we're discussing the KRA raid and equally the NEMA saving Nairobi River. Of course, one of the biggest stories right here on the front page of the Daily Nation, the toxic flow as NEMA finally makes arrest and, closing down of certain industry, probably contradicting what the Big Four agenda would be talking about right now in terms of making the best of the manufacturing and industrial activities in the country. But equally very important, if at all we are to consider the health benefits of a country or the people who are staying around this particular entity. So joining us this particular morning, Ben Mulwa, governance consultant. Thank you so much. Who's in the middle. It's good to have you this beautiful morning. And of course, Fred Arika Abima is right next to me. Great to have you this morning, a political analyst. And lastly, Adede Paul Adede has household name, I would want to say, because normally we're always with him right here, right next to Ayub. He's equally a political analyst. It's great to have you this morning, gentlemen. And we're looking forward to a great discussion as to these issues that affect us as a country. Most importantly, of course, the aspect of tax that directly translate to the pockets of the common mwananchi, and equally Ayub is right here so that we can have this discussion this beautiful morning. So to kick us off, I think I'll ask it in the simplest way possible. This crackdown that we're witnessing in terms of tax, good move, and something that is consistent and something that we're going to witness bringing aboard differences in the tax sector?
It's a good move by arresting the KRA employees. However, what matters by the end of the day is will these people be arrested, be prosecuted, not just being arrested. The end product is what will really matter in the fight of corruption. By just arresting them, and you find that few months later they are out, it not really assist us as a country in the fight against corruption.
All right, there you go. Fight against corruption. Probably we'd love to hear from you, Ben, just to weigh in your sentiments on this arrest that we're witnessing today. Not the first time.
Yes.
So Kenyans would just argue that maybe this is just the usual thing that we're used to.
Well, the first thing we have to agree, Lina, is that we have to distinguish between the roles of those who play different functions in the war against corruption. The reality is the DCI and the DPP in the last 1.5 years now has really proven to be able to demonstrate consistency and commitment in this. And the one thing that this particular impending raid poses to Kenyans is that this continuously ongoing activities have instilled a lot of fear within the entire public service. Trust me. I have very many friends I know, young men and women who work in KRA, work in Kenya Power and different places. And you're going to find very young men who are 70, 100,000 shillings driving Range Rovers and Land Cruisers V8s and building apartments. We can't go on like this. Yes. These are thieves. We have to call them exactly as they are. These are thieves, and these raids actually are going to cause a massive reorganization in public service. You cannot, we cannot afford to anymore make it a culture in public service that you are employed to steal. It is unacceptable in my view. And that is the culture that we have had. In fact, there's a recent report that was published by my friend Dr. Alex Awiti of the East African Institute at the Aga Khan University. And you find today an average young graduate wants to join the public service because they know that it's the only place where you earn without working. So I think this is going to be a wake-up call to everybody who is in public service, because Kenyans have continued to suffer. The average Kenyan out there cannot receive medication. We're seeing the malaria outbreak in Baringo. It is a very basic thing. Yet people who are tasked actually to collect and manage our taxes are stealing it. So I think this is a very good move. It is a good thing. We're also seeing the same is coming up with the KPA. It happened with Kenya Power. I can assure you, nobody today in the public service wants to be involved in anything funny. And it is a good thing for this country.
But the reorganization is there, but we still witness recycling of the leadership and recycling of the figures that are still there.
That's a different level. In my view, at this stage, just the fact that today I can walk into KRA and get services without having to bribe anybody, that's a plus.
That's a plus.
Whether we get convictions or not is a second level.
Yes. Right.
But at this stage, walk into KRA today, nobody will want to start telling you, no, your file is not around here. And that's a good thing. I think it is. We are going in the right direction.
Because there's that general fear, isn't it? Paul, coming to you then. And this clampdown by the authorities, the criminal justice system, that seems to have upped its game. But looking at this and how Haji and Kinoti are tightening the rope, and the fact that the KRA itself says that it's going to be putting back some money amounting to more than 200 billion Kenya shillings. Does it, at the end of the day, one that resonates well with the taxpayer who feels economically at an uncertain point?
You see, one thing that my friend has also said, Ben Muller said, is that about the KRA staffs, what they are, the kind of fear which is within the civil servant. But what we also have to appreciate, the issue of KRA, it has been there, but there has not been political goodwill. Yes. As per now, we have a good political atmosphere where there's no witch hunt. You know, the other time there were crackdowns, but you'll see the political side of the side will say you are targeting our people. But today the temperature, or the political temperature, is so good for some of this crackdown. And you look at it, what he was just saying, like if you listen to James Mburu,
Yes.
he said that 2 weeks after he was sworn in, he said that we don't need even to borrow money. We have enough. Yes. Like yesterday he was saying that the amount of money that he's looking for is around 250 billion. That one is even now enough to pay for the SGR loan. So the only problem that we have is that people, for example, you look at some of the industries that we have, they deduct pay as you earn, they deduct with the holding tax, even the suppliers to the county government, even the national government. So it's not even, because the KRA process for crackdown is clear. There is civil part of it. We come to you, we do analysis to your financial statement.
Yes.
We tell you you are not remitting funds on this direction. They discuss. But you find that some of this tax evasion, as we say, they're deliberate through assistance from the KRA staffs. So for what I'm seeing, is that this is one of the best processes for us to get these public services. We have to tax our people, and then tax evasion should be the last thing to happen in this country. Yes.
All right, you're talking about this, and the process is down there, and one of the key things why we're having this evasion today is it has been attributed to the fact that there are slow processes within the KRA tribunal, and that aspect of recovering of taxes, and this needs to be reviewed. Of course, this according to the words of the DPP himself, and he says it's important that we review this, because if we do not review this, then we probably are going to be fighting a losing battles. What does it speak of the KRA constitution, such time of age?
The alternative dispute process is there within the according to the law, and then tax law, it's also there. But you see, like what James Mburu is now saying, there's in the tax process, it has been civil, where you come on the table, we discuss your books of statement, vis-a-vis what we have found out. But now there are certain things that are obvious. You have your employees, you have deducted that money. You have deducted it, like pay as you earn. Withholding tax, you have deducted that money. That money belongs to the government. It's deliberate that you, as the company staff or the directors, you are purposely not remitting that money to the government, knowingly. But there is other process where me as a Dede, I'm ignorant of the process of tax filing. Yes. That one they will come, it's the responsibility of the KRA staffs to come and educate you that this is how you should be filing your returns. That's agreeable. That's the civil part of it. And then even if there is a tax evasion, there's room for you guys to discuss. If it is 1 million, how much can you pay it monthly? Those are agreeable. But when it's deliberate, where you have even deducted that money from even from your, yes, and you never pay it, that's criminal.
Okay, the criminal element, and we are of course in the midst of this process, and it seems to be a fight that is all-encompassing, that is seeking to achieve certain outcome, and that is to cleanse certain institutions or to rid them of corruption. But Fred, let me come to you on this element. When you listen to the new Commissioner General, he seems to be more focused on also the internal capacity of KRA, which he believes that is the turning point where the problems do normally emanate from the anchor point. How much of trouble has there been within the KRA itself? Because nobody can abscond paying taxes without help from within. And therefore, our eyes should be trained on the inward sense of the KRA framework so that we ensure the staff within are of integrity and that they are of concern to this money that the government uses to run the country. So how does it clean up the internal house before focusing on the external one?
Apparently, by him being committed, he should first start by all staff. Apparently, I believe all staff should be vetted and carry because afresh, all of them, because as he said, it's an open secret that if you work in KRA, you should not be a struggling man like an average Kenyan. And so it's seen everywhere. Everyone working in KRA is just is not a poor man, I can tell you, even if he has worked for 2 years. Now, how also he should come up with a department which deals with corruption in KRA itself first, where the department which should be dealing with the ESCC directly. By that one, I believe it will be easier for him as a starting point. And also the system, the holistic system, both from the IT, from the people, from from the stakeholders, he should come up with a good system of dealing with tax, and also by continuous improvement and education. Because a lot of people, can tell you, don't even file returns. The very young people don't even file returns. And that's a starting point also. And for the big companies, some people may not even be knowing on, some accountants may not even be understanding on 1-2 things which have changed over time. They may be dealing with all the systems which are not really helping him as the commissioner.
All right.
All right. Oh, okay. You can go first, no problem.
Go ahead.
All right, I think in relation to that, in as much as maybe we would want to crack down within the KRA, equally, I don't know whether you guys have seen this, but I think it's pretty common nowadays that employers would opt, number one, not to pay their employees through the right channels, you know, the banking processes, all these processes that are there, and mostly would want to pay their employees cash. Cash, sometimes they would not even want to go to that level where there are contracts, notable contracts, simply because they sort of feel like, you know, when you pay them cash, then you're easily able to evade paying, you know, these taxes or remitting these taxes to the government as expected. Should we also go back to the drawing board and understand what are some of the entities that are registered and what is the mode of operation at this particular time? Because if it does not reach to that level of KRA, then we would want to assume then they're ignorant in this sense. But then the registrations are, of course, these companies and entities are well registered and are well acknowledged, of course, within the government. So it's a clear indication that in as much as we'd want to go deep into understanding what happens within the KRA, but equally there are some things that are happening on the outdoor that have not been addressed. So how well can we approach this to avoid to equally have these people responsible and go about to actually pay taxes as expected?
You realize, Lena, we didn't wake up just one morning and find ourselves where we are. There has been a dangerous culture that has been built over time. And actually, to add on to what Fred was indicating, the entry point is it starts inward. We have had uncountable cases whereby you hear somebody brought in, say, I imported a car, say a Range Rover 2016. The duty on that particular car is supposed to be, say, 4 or 5 million shillings. I go talk to somebody at KRA. They agree I undervalue or underdeclare the value of that particular car, even backdate the year of manufacture, and I pay 700,000 or 1 million shillings, and then he pockets maybe another 500,000 shillings. So I end up spending up 1.5 million. We still, from the government, a whole 2.5 million
million
shillings. So that culture, the reason you find now employers have been pushed to that end is based on several factors. The primary reason as to why we pay taxes is to receive services from government.
From the government, yes.
So it doesn't make sense for me to continue paying taxes to a government that continues to steal the same taxes. Then I have to also cover this for the same services that I expect from the government. I have to ensure I have my personal security because the government is not providing security. I have to cover privately for my healthcare because the government is not providing healthcare. I have to seek private education for my kids because the government is, the public schools have been run down. You see, these are the basics. So actually, the government is the one that has pushed citizens to that age where they are not committed to paying taxes. In the event these services were efficient, every citizen would be happy if our roads were smooth and we are guaranteed of security 24 hours. We have functional public schools. We have a functional healthcare system. Nobody would have a problem paying taxes because that's actually what citizens from any other part of the world receive in return from their taxes. But this culture actually, as Adede has indicated, the Commissioner General has to start this mopping up from internally. So that those guys, he pays them a salary. Let them do exactly what they are paid to do. Then he'll be able to collect sufficient money. They have to seal all the loopholes where people steal money. Then the Treasury has sufficient funds. This haggling even we are seeing between the national government and counties should not even exist. We have enough money. The Kibaki administration ran this country entirely on collection of taxes, and they achieved so much. But the stealing culture really has to come to an end.
All right. And as you put that, of course, it takes a lot before the Kenya Revenue Authority and equally the other justice system in the country will retool its workforce to ensure that we weed out the corrupt elements in the country, even as it seems that we have intensified the war against graft in the country. So it's only important then that we hit the break here on the program. When we come back, I'll first start with Paul Adede here, finish up on that particular story, then move on to the National Environment and Management Authority, saving the Nairobi River, yet again another corruption angle as to why the companies have been able to manipulate the effluent into the Nairobi River, which now no longer houses the aquatic life. And you can see the extent of the damage that was done to the river and the danger it poses to the people who live along its banks here in the city of Nairobi. The number is 0791478990. The short SMS code is 40920, and the hashtag on Twitter is NewDayKE. We are coming back after this short commercial break. Stay tuned. Yes, welcome back. You're watching the program. Thanks for staying with us. And you're still, we are still rather discussing the matter that pertains to the KRA staff. Now the DPP said he'll question more than 80 KRA officials over tax evasion and how they have helped people who evaded taxes, according to the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, Nurdin Haji. So Adede, I'll come to you. We'll finish up on that before Linda introduces the other important topic that pertains saving the Nairobi River. Now, looking at this and the fact that the new Commissioner General in charge now has been the head of the intelligence within the KRA, and now coming on board with the admission that there has been a system breakdown internally, what does it tell about the entire system of the KRA and how it undertakes its mandate constitutionally? Was it a case of a toxic environment within KRA itself facilitating people to evade taxes and now coming up to cleanse his already problems? And is this an admission perhaps that he has failed earlier and wants now to use the broad brush to clean the Kenya Revenue Authority?
I think one thing that we also have to accept that in the KRA, it has been manual. It's 3 years down the line that all the system has been digitalized. So through digitalization, a lot of things have come out, and that's the reason why you see some of these processes are so fast. However much James Buru was in charge of intelligence, but it's also the back door at the staffs, because you know, being intelligent doesn't mean that you know everything. Some of these things you pick them from your staffs. Like for example, the one for Keroche. You must look at, not all the KRA staff were looking at Keroche's books of account. There are specific people who are looking at the books of account. So where the mess-up is, they need to know who did what and who did not do what at that point. So however much he was a head of intelligence,
Yes.
there are certain places where communication breakdown. Sometimes even if you are the head of intelligence, you look at even the DPP sometimes. There are so many cases he has taken to court, but they are also collapsing.
the threshold.
Yeah, the threshold. So give it to him, what's there. But with the serious implementation of automation of KRA, we are yet to see more staffs and more companies going down.
All right, Belinda.
Yeah, there you go. And I think we won't expand much more because then it's a developing story. We keep following up on what
Yes.
plays out. But Kenyans can only hope that indeed we get to find something tangible out of this in terms of arrest, in terms of recovery of assets, in terms of payments of these particular taxes that have been evaded for the longest of time. But that aside, we also want to equally take a look at this important issue on the saving of Nairobi River, and not just Nairobi River, but technically, or where we can, our water sources, the forests that, of course, are good enough towards ensuring that we are able to get enough water right here in the country. And we've witnessed the arrests that were made yesterday by NEMA, and equally, of course, the closing down of certain entities that have been considered as, pollutants, of course, of certain environments, and complaints coming aboard from people who are living within these particular areas where the industries are. And this is not the first time that we're witnessing this.
Absolutely. Yes.
And when you look into it, you realize there's a lot of loopholes that have been left. Of course, maybe some of these companies or these industries have not gone through, the processes that they're supposed to go through in terms of vetting and all that. So it has landed us to this particular point. And one would ask, this arrest that we're witnessing down today, and the closing down of these industries that create employment, that give us what we use on a daily basis. Like, for instance, of course, we're talking about the Daima milk. Most of the people consume this. But we have been rendered to this point simply because of these talks that are on board. So we would want to ask ourselves, is it the right direction to take? Is NEMA doing the right thing in terms of cracking down on this? And is it, again, something that is going to be long-lasting towards solving the situation? Because the battle of ensuring that our environment is good has been ongoing. It's a global battle. And you witnessed even on the G7 summit that these are some of the key things that are being addressed and being talked about. So when we look at Nairobi River going down the way it is going down, it leaves us worried at some point in time. So what does it make of us in this fight? Maybe to start with you.
Okay. Apparently, it's a good move. However, NEMA will be quite defensive after they have received complaints, because it's just started from complaints of the area MCA.
Yes.
That's over time. That's when she had seen that over time complaints coming from families. However, NEMA also is on their side. They are not doing badly. They are not doing badly in this case by going to these companies. However, the problem is it's supposed to be done all the time, not only when there's a problem. And now, when you see by closing down some companies there, it's also a problem because those families, a lot of families depend on them to earn a living, and also a lot of Kenyans we may be depending on those products which are being processed there. And so while they are closing those companies, they should also be helping those companies to comply regularly, so that it cannot pose a big problem by closing those companies.
Brings about a pertinent point on how, of course, it's important to comply. But then how best can we just deal with the issue of pollution and equally maintain our very own companies in the right state?
Lina, these activities by NEMA sometimes are extremely wanting, because in my view, it points back to the same issue I was discussing about KRA.
Yes.
Lethargy in civil service or in the public service. Because we have institutions that tend to undertake their work as if they are events.
Okay.
This should be a continuous process. So NEMA suddenly now wakes up and thinks that there is pollution into Nairobi River. This has been happening every day for the longest time we know.
Right.
What we have is incompetent individuals sitting in NEMA who earn salaries, who never do these random inspections to ensure that people are complying on a daily basis. They earn salaries actually to do that. So this idea of just ambushing people one morning and then you disappear, it is the same thing. Go today to all the matatus. Nobody is wearing seatbelts. Yet the other day it was a huge event. The police treat some of these things as if they are events. Yet they are supposed to be continuous exercises because that's what they are supposed to do. So, but in particular, what NEMA needs to do is ensure that this is full-time and continuous. Because the reality is we have to do some delicate balancing here. Indeed, there could be individuals who are losing employment. But that should not be a license to companies to go rogue and not comply with established rules and regulations just because they have employed people. The same water downstream is being consumed by individuals. We have unprecedented cases of cancer coming up. You saw the report the other day about the pollution into Nairobi River, which will end up in the Thwake Dam. The largest upcoming dam in the East African region. And that water is intended to be able to serve a large population. So it must be fixed, and that has to be now. So NEMA should cut us the drama and ensure that all the way from Ngong Hills, anybody who is disseminating effluent into Nairobi River either faces the law or their activities are shut down.
Right.
That is the only way we are going to. But this idea of events, because now we have seen similar events previously, whereby they do a random ambush, people are arrested. We never hear about how the prosecution either goes or convictions. And a few days down the line, the companies are back in operation without demonstration that they have addressed anything. So this has to be a continuous exercise.
Wadede, let me come to you then, because this appears to, according to many Kenyans, it appears a case of a knee-jerk reaction, not per se what it ought to have done before. When they tested yesterday in that inspection process the level of acidity of the effluent that the companies were discharging into the river, it was of much concern because, again, we have rising cases of health hazardous cases. Looking at that, does it further dim Kenya's hope of water for all, in the sense that we also have that cutting across the 47 counties? And what does this speak to the ordinary mwananchi who has been bearing the brunt of the pollution of Nairobi River, to be specific, the people of Nairobi County?
I think one thing that Linda was trying even to bring is how the process of complying to the rules and regulation when you're setting up an industry or a company. The environmental assessment, the environmental impact assessment, which has to, it's within the preamble, that they come and do access on the environment where you want to operate. They look at the process where you are going to, the byproducts, and even the effluent. Where was the environmental impact assessment document pertaining even the daima industry, all this? You see, that's what we are saying. Some of these are reactionary tactics from the NEMA body, because, like, for example, if you want to start an industry here, they come and access all the processes, and then they give you a certificate of compliance that we have checked your company and it is complying. It's okay. It's okay. These people have been operating for the last more than 10 years. Where have they been? So, and even Nairobi, the reason why Nairobi was considered a city, it was because of Nairobi River. Those are some of the factors that were considered for a place to be called a town. So, what NEMA is doing is just because they are seeing KRA is behaving the other side, why are we not behaving? It's like now everybody's now want to show that, show the ordinary Kenyans that they are working. NEMA is behaving the other side, KRA is behaving the other side, government, the other side, DCI and the DPP. But what is so important is the rate at which, it's not even Nairobi alone. If you go to Kisumu, there's Kibos. I saw people crying about it there. They are depositing everything in our rivers. So what's there is they have to go beyond just Nairobi River. They go even to other counties like Kisumu, Mombasa, and then you look at it like when they got rid of the polythene. Where have we reached? They have not even briefed Kenyans
or assessed
that where have we reached with this, because we are still we still have the plastic, those plastic.
The bags are there.
The bags are still there. So we have to, at least we sometimes need accountability in terms of where have we reached. We are from this point, we are going from this point, and at least sometimes brief the citizens, so that we don't, because the kinds of reaction we are seeing here, because Kenyans do not know what's happening.
Yes.
With them, they will see it in terms of job employment being lost, because they don't know what's happening. But if they are briefed that this company, Daima Collection, we have done analysis on what we are doing, this and this and this. So by the time you are acting on them,
Yes.
everybody is at par with what you are doing.
All right. So how do we save ourselves or escape the wrath of pollution in the near future? Because then we are growing as a country.
Absolutely.
And industries keep coming up every other day. And right now, even as we're talking about the Big Four agenda, and especially when it's the big bosses, project, every other person will be rushing out here to ensure that, it's up. That desire to have a legacy, then there are likelihoods that maybe President Uhuru Kenyatta would want more, factories coming up in, the best of manufacturing, which is one of the pillars of the Big Four agenda as a success. So you're likely to experience kickbacks and shortcuts towards setting up some of these factories. So how can we save ourselves from this wrath? How do we escape, a future that is going to be way polluted from what we are experiencing today?
Actually, Lina, one of the key things for any country to progress, the foundation of a sane society is the rule of law. And it is not excusable. That must be demonstrated starting from government.
Right.
That's how that culture is inculcated even into the citizenry.
Yes.
As long as we have government officers who believe they are above the law, who can operate with impunity without anything happening to them, we can never make any progress. Because as a citizen, I'll give you examples. Even recently, we saw a circular from the National Police Service indicating the individuals who are permitted to use sirens on our roads.
Yeah.
And who should be driving on what side of the road. And we have continued to see even principal secretaries driving on the wrong side of the road.
Yeah.
So it's like in your house as a parent. Children will never learn from what you keep saying, but from observing what you do.
Okay.
So they cannot be telling us to stop the issues of polluting our environment or ensure that we are living within the confines of the law. Yet the government is leading from the front in breaking the same laws. That culture must begin from the... You see, even as the president struggles to find something to call his legacy, there has been a lot of impunity for the last 7 years under his tenure. He has to accept that. Then starting from that, he has to agree what kind of reorganization does he want to see so that this country becomes functional again. And that can only be achieved by him leading from the front. Even the war on corruption must reach a threshold whereby it does not appear to be witch hunt, or it does not appear to be targeting specific individuals while providing relief for others. That's the only way we are going to achieve that. So even by the time you are telling citizens that they must not be polluting environment or how they should be discharging, let the government lead from the front. Because we have also cases, I'll give you examples. KMC is a government agency in Athi River. They discharge their waste into the same Athi River.
Yes.
And there are very many, Thika Tannery, you drive around that place, they discharge their effluent into the same rivers. So the government cannot be pretending that they are trying to enforce the law while there are government agencies that are breaking the same law. That culture must start from the top.
All right, lessons from the top, and whether they are enough of the president's administration, because they equally are shortcomings when he himself did say that sasa munataka nifanye nini, and he on Monday said that I'll no longer pick any calls, meaning that there are calls that were made between 2013 and 17 that he just doesn't want to pick them now because he is not seeking re-election, as per he said. I don't know why leaders tend to be more concerned about their re-election than delivering on the mandate.
It's very unfortunate.
But Fred Arika, coming to you. It's still on Nema's story. I just want to couple it up from this angle. Is that when the investigative agencies investigated the Aurora and Kimwere dams, they realized that the National Environment and Management Authority did give out clearance, and there was the certification of the clearance of the bush around there for the construction of the dam. Again, it brings forth state parastatals and organizations that are complacent in corporate criminality in this country. What are the assurances and the guarantees that NEMA can give in this particular scenario that these companies discharging the effluent, yes, but there has been no internal collaboration from within NEMA as an agency itself.
Now, public offices in most cases are political. In fact, not all the times are political. And so when when they gave a clear, when they gave a clean bill of health for Arola and Kimarer, you can also see the political part of it, because the people who were involved in this case were who were implicated. In this case, were politicians,
Cabinet
ministers, and so we cannot really try to. We cannot really try to not to put politics in this one, because is the way of life in Kenya and in all parts of the world. However, now in this case of NEMA, let's hope that since the handshake, at least we are going to see better things. However, it's not really that they are going to work miracles, because we have seen cases of where it's just a one-off, just side shows to make us happy for one day, and then they go under. And also, if at all,
Can we cut your line of thought just for a moment so that we can pick a call from Kamau, who is calling us from Juja. Then we'll get back to you right immediately so that we don't lose him. Kamau from Juja, good morning. Hello, Kamau, good morning.
Yes, I have an issue about the environment in Junja.
Right.
From around the entrance to Jomo Kenyatta University, the road on the main highway, Nairobi highway, up to where you call sewage or High Point. There is no sewage being dumped into open drainage. It has been a nuisance for a long time, as long as I have been in Juja. Now it's about 20 years. And we complain and nothing happens. New drainages are being dug. Still with open sewage being drained into those open drains. And nothing seems to happen, even with the environmental department in Hika or Kiambu. And we report that nothing happened.
Okay.
Well, thank you. I hope NEMA is listening to that.
Well, we'll of course note down that as an important aspect,
Yes.
so that we can do some follow-up
On that.
with our reporters. Continue, Fred.
Now, I can say that NEMA is not going to work miracles all the time. It's only that for a short time, as we prospect, they are going to really make sure that these companies comply. And so they should make sure that all the time, compliance is key in manufacturing. And you see now, when they have long procedures for compliance, it makes it difficult for some small organizations to really try to comply. Other than they should have shorter procedures, which are clear, and also even give subsidies to these organizations so that at least they can be able to continually comply to what NEMA really wants.
All right. Let's just loop in any of you, yes, in terms of the question of compliance, which he brings aboard. I think it's important that the people out there really understand what good comes along with compliance in terms of dealing with the question of pollution in this case. Because let's laugh a bit about this. And I'm sure some of you would, or all of us would attest to the fact that at some point in time, there are places, they're just prone spot, like the caller has said. You would pass and you're certain that you're going to get this smell. You know, like you can pinpoint certain places, you know, that you're driving along and you're telling the next person, you know what, hapa kuna kuanga na kaharufu fulani hivi, so don't mind, you know. So years and years down the line, really, is it a question that maybe these industries have not complied or anything? So where or what role really does compliance play in terms of addressing the aspect of pollution?
You realize, Lina, as I indicated, it's about the culturalization that we have continued to build. Over time, you know, if you need to look at the business environment that this country had, and even the entrepreneurship culture that this country had, perhaps in the 70s and even sometimes up to the early 80s, before we really went south. And you realize, like these cases we have been seeing, of...
Ben, let me just pause you for a moment. Allow me to take this call from our caller at home, that is in Nyamira County. Good morning.
Jairus.
Yes,
Morning to you. Habari asubuhi?
I'm really.
Okay, talk to us.
I'm thinking that program is a good one.
Uh-huh.
Yes, yes.
Yes, I'm getting you.
I'm really ready.
Yes, please, if you can lessen the volume of your television set so that we can...
I'm so happy you're saying. Hapa ndio nasema iendelee kabisa.
Uh-huh.
Jairus.
Please, if you can lessen the volume of your television set so that we can effectively communicate.
My views is the way you guys have put it and mimi nafuata ndio mmesema.
Uh-huh.
There are so good issues.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's because you've talked of so many issues.
Uh-huh.
So many river and the KRA and all those, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So that's the way to go, the way you guys have put it.
Okay.
Yes, thank you so much. May God bless.
Asante sana. Thank you so much. Thank you for calling us from Nyamira
And
County.
actively taking part. Of course,
That one
listening
shows
to and watching us.
that one shows Hebrew has a very big viewership.
Thank you.
Nyamira County is my home.
Oh, right. Now, back to where I was. You realize, like, there is a time nobody could ever contemplate even selling the kind of poison we have seen people selling, like in liquor, ethanol. It was completely unimaginable that I could just import and sell poison to Kenyans because you knew the ramifications. It was impossible to imagine that I could have maize that is filled with aflatoxin and sell to Kenyans. But gradually, government agencies failed in their regulatory role in ensuring that they protect citizens because that's a primary role of government. So over time, there's this culture whereby now anything comes and goes. You're sure you can put your unroadworthy vehicle on the road, give 50 shillings to the traffic officer and get away with it.
Go.
So this culture has taken a long time to get us to where we are. So for us to be able to retrieve ourselves, again, it really has to start from the top. As people say, fish rots from the head. As long as there is no leadership, as long as these agencies continue to treat us to these theatrics and knee-jerk reactions to some of these activities without a plan, like now, as Dede was asking, what have we been able to achieve as a country with the plastic ban that came from NEMA?
Right.
We need a report. We need Kenyans to be told we've been able to improve on our environment on certain levels because we did 1, 2, 3. But there's nothing. So gradually, Kenyans begin to feel that, why should I be responsible while everybody else is not doing what they are supposed to be doing? So that culture actually, and I have continuously insisted, has to be instilled from not only the president, but even his cabinet. When people start realizing that it is this serious, like was the case with, as was the case over the weekend with Matiang'i closing the bars to ensure that people go for the census. It reaches a point everybody realizes, oh, so this is very serious. As I've indicated, even with KRA, these raids, I mean, it happened at Kenya Power, it happened at Kenya Pipeline, and now we have KRA, it's coming to KPA. So the next guys, even at NEMA, will be like, wait a minute, I don't want to be the next one. So I just have to do the right things. But without that, it is going to take us a long time.
Well, again, it speaks to the essence of the laid down law in this country, but to the effect that there is no compliance until the intervention of the enforcement agencies. Again, it speaks largely to, Paul, coming to you, Adede, to the integrity of state officials or state holders of state offices and how we need to turn around that culture which appears to be denting our image and reputation as a country. Because you take a look at what happened or transpired at the court case of the Akashas in New York City, that is in the United States of America, where the defense lawyers of the Akashas did say that, you know what, the collaboration between the judges, the police, and the drug lords is a culture in that country. It's a norm. That is what that's the defense point of the lawyers of the Akashas. Again, dents further or deepens the reputation of this country. So how do we turn around generally our legacy as a country?
Allow me to read this. And
Yes,
it's pretty
important
funny.
element.
It's a cartoon, yeah,
Yes,
right? It's pretty funny. And this is probably abroad when our athletes are out there representing us. And the question on board is, these Kenyan athletes are really good. What conditions do they train under? Somebody else answers corruption, tribalism, nepotism, impunity. I'm thinking, will Adede Paul be able to give us an answer as to what really we can do as a country to arrest this? You know?
What are high?
Is it the main thing is the government should be providing enabling environment for most of the companies and everybody in this country to do business and also practice the ethical part of it. When our constitution was being made, the people who drafted our constitution saw this, and that's the reason why they came with Chapter 6, which of course I saw it being implemented on Governor Waititu,
Yes.
through the Mumbi's
Yes, High Court ruling.
High Court ruling. What we have to accept as a nation is that the country reached a point where it was completely a banana country, autopilot, that is. Because it's not even about the civil servant. It even goes down to our politics as a nation. You see, he's saying that Matiang'i had to close bars.
For people to be counted.
Yeah, to be counted. In fact, if we continue going the way we are going, people will be forced to go and vote. Because it's at a point where they are reach a point where they say, whether I vote or I don't vote,
Apathy
It doesn't
or
make a
weakness.
it doesn't make a
Doesn't.
difference. So
Yeah.
unless we restore factory, we start afresh. That's where now we can move as a nation. But where we have reached, I tell you, there's nothing. You will chase almost all the civil servant, public service, you will chase all of them, or they will go there and sabotage, sit in. They say, okay, fine, you are fighting us, now we are there. So they will not be working. So the reasons why we have reached here is that politics of this country must change. We reach a point where it's our time to eat, it's your time to watch.
Right.
And that's why it's very important for us to start discussing the constitution of a nation. Does inclusivity bring anything? And what does this inclusivity entails? Punguza mzigo, those which are there. Then at what point, because if you look at even the members of parliament there today, they are 200 and something, 357.
Yes.
You look at them and kind of discussion they have in the public, they're not even what you call leadership. They are just about sycophancy and who butters my bread
My
well.
bread.
Yeah, they are less concerned because what is there is that they have realized that they can be where they are without the citizens or the electorate putting them there. So that's all that the problem that we have in this nation starts from the leadership and governance. Once we sort out the leadership and governance, and you can see it, Uhuru and Raila today are in good terms. Everything is moving. So meaning, if we sort out the leadership at the top, the way he's saying, and we have people who are focused,
Yes.
which they don't look at the sides, the way Uhuru now is doing, it doesn't bother whether Kikuyu is in trouble or a Kalenjin in trouble. Raila is not looking whether Luo is in trouble or what. Where you look at rules and regulation, that's where our country will go. But as per now, and you see, the way Fred was saying, it's just for a time being. We are almost starting the referendum politics. People will go back to where they are. Yeah. So are we able as a nation to stick to the right lane? That's what
Right. Okay. All about the adherence to the law, which will be, in other words, a solution to the other problems that we normally incur. But it appears that this is also a deep-rooted problem that we have carried on forth since 1963, when we became a state afterwards, the end of the colonialism by the British government. But Fred, coming to you then, before Linda gets to Ben Mulwa and your winding thoughts, does it equally again speak to the essence of generally a country that is tarnished, or the present, the past regimes tarnished by allegations or reports of incompetence and patronage when you look at the mismanagement of the economy, the political climate between 2013 and 17, wale wengine wa kukula moshi, sisi tukikula nyama, and then you look at the 6 cabinet ministers who are implicated in the president's cabinet. You cascade down to where we are today, where the KRA is doing some revamping, sort of wanting to clean up the house that is dirty, and yet it knew it was dirty within. Again, a long story, the chain continues. Well, is it the remedy point of injecting the country of the disease and starting this country afresh post-2022?
That one I can say yes, because we all aim for a better nation all the time. What really matters is these politicians, the politicians, our leaders of the day, they don't vote for themselves. We vote for them. So when we vote a bad leader, we should not be the ones also the first one to start complaining about the same. Because a bad leadership is what really brings all those bad problems you can see. And it does not, one person, for example, right now, His Excellency the President is quite committed in fighting against corruption and other immoral things. But you get that there was a lot of rot over time since 1963. Because for a long time, it has been that you should fight to get a post, a political post, for you to be not only rich but also amass enough power, which assists which can assist you in other things. And now, the problem is I can tell you the problem is us the voters, because we are the ones who vote.
Yes.
And so we are the one to make that change
Okay.
from down up. Thank you.
As time is not on our side,
Yes,
maybe just
we
the
give,
last segment. Of
30
course, as though he
seconds
was
to
reading my question, because then again, you look at some of the people who are affected with these industries and these factories, they're just within. It's not necessarily the people who live around, but we still are comfortable and we still work in such conditions that are not good enough. Instead of saying today we're going slow because we feel like this and this should be addressed. We feel like this entity should go ahead and comply for the benefit of us all.
One thing you have to realize is that over time, because of the absence of a functional system, very many Kenyans have been pushed to very desperate levels. That's why, as an employee, suppose you're able to establish that your employer is non-compliant on certain issues, you have to choose whether you want to become a champion, a civil rights champion, and do the right thing, or you have to keep quiet and continue earning your salary because you have yourself and your family to take care of. So Kenyans have been pushed, but in a functional system whereby, you know, everything must be done right, it becomes easier. Unemployment is really at unimaginable levels in this country. So sometimes you've seen even employees who work under very dangerous conditions in most of the industries, especially these steel manufacturing companies. But they have to keep up with that because they have no choice. So overall, what we need is a complete transformation of our work ethic and culture, whereby people just agree to do what they are paid to do. If we began to do that, believe me, this country will never be the same again. Yes.
All right. I gave 20 seconds to Adede.
Yeah, what I was just saying is, what he has, Steve has alluded to, it's not the problem of the voters. The voters do not have a problem. In this country today, we have what is called deep state. We have to address the issue of deep state, and then now we come, because if you look at even since 1963 until when Kibaki left power, we had a loan of 1.4 trillion. Within 7 years of Uhuru and Ruto's, we have 5.8 trillion. So there is a problem, and this problem are escalating as we move. We become more irresponsible nation.
Well, and the need, of course, for financial discipline and good monetary or proper monetary policies. But gentlemen, I do appreciate your time. Ben Mulwa, Asante Sana governance consultant, Fred Arika Bima, political commentator, and Paul Adede, who is political analyst. Gentlemen, thank you all. So we are getting to the break here on the program. When we come back, we'll be turning our attention to a personal development talk, and we shall be talking to Jen Abokutsa, who is motivational speaker, and the journey to greatness, what needs to be fixed as an individual and from the individual perspective and the capacity. In case of the incapacitation, well, that is a discussion that will fit you best after the short break on the program. Stay tuned.